ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our weekly Q&A live stream. I've picked the right night of the week to do it this week because it's a quiet day. There's not an awful lot to talk about. There's no big news stories. There's no breaking interviews, transfer rumours, anything like that. It's just me and you guys just going to talk about Celtic, preview ourselves, building into a weekend where Celtic can make it 4 in a row on their way to a tedious treble, as some may call it. It's a big week, nonetheless. It might not feel like it because there's not an awful lot happening today and there's not a lot of news being churned out, but it's not. Let's not downplay the fact that Celtic could be champions again this weekend. The fact that Celtic are days away from potentially winning their blockbuster 55th league title, and drawing with Rangers for the most league titles in this country. So, you know, this is a big weekend for Celtic, a huge weekend. We are a point away from making it happen. Of course, there's no guarantees around anything. Tannadice will be a hard place to go. Tannadice is one of those places that we've already seen this season. It can be a really tricky one. And I think we've already seen Dundee United, Glenn Middleton, I think it was, Dundee United player coming out and saying, former Rangers player as well, coming out and saying they don't want any title celebrations at Tannadice this weekend. So I'm sure that they'll be stepping up to make it as hard as possible. Listen, Dundee United are still fighting for a huge season. They're still trying to battle to get as high up in the table as they can to try and get themselves the best possible European position going into next season. So there's no guarantees, and there's no point in calling it as if it's a foregone conclusion this weekend at Tannadice, because it's absolutely not. We have a big job ahead of us. We have a game that will test us, but I have seen enough of Celtic these past couple of weeks. I've seen enough of Celtic this weekend to suggest that we are back to our best, that we can seriously hurt teams again after a little kind of period of down form, you could say. I don't know. It's a cheek to call down form, anything down form at Celtic at the minute, because we've just been so good this season. And when you're going to win a treble, there's no such thing as down form. So, yeah, big game nonetheless, a point away from being crowned champions. And we're going to talk about everything tonight. I'm going to get all of your questions, all your points in regards to the weekend, in regards to Celtic in general at the minute. It can be anything you like to discuss tonight. That is the whole point of these streams. I'd like to say a big thank you to all the channel members who are piling in, the likes of Adam, Mackenzie, Kyle, Dylan. It's good to see you. We have a great community now building over in the members section. New members joining every day. So if you want to become one of those guys, you know what to do. The link is down below. But we very quickly must cover the fact that we have crossed the 49,000 subscriber mark. That's right, we have passed the 49k number, which means we are now on the final stretch to 50,000 subscribers. We are officially less than 1,000 subscribers away from becoming the first Celtic fan ran channel on YouTube to reach 50,000 subscribers. So hopefully we can maybe get there by the end of the season. It's a very short amount of time to try and get 1,000 subs, but we can do it together, can't we? Thank you guys for all your support. What a huge landmark when we hit that 50k. Anyway, in terms of news and such, as I said, it has been a quiet news day. There hasn't been too much to talk about. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with the ins and outs of nothing, because that would just be a waste of our time. I think we should just use tonight as a full Q&A special. We can get all of your questions, cover different things that have maybe popped up in the past few days, but everything I've had to cover I already have. We spoke about that horrendous article yesterday which dubbed Celtic's treble a tedious one. We've covered the wee news stories that have regarded maybe Greg Taylor or whoever. We've kind of been through all of that. So I want all of your questions tonight, and we're just going to dedicate all of this to a Q&A. On that note, what a way to kick us off. A couple of donations. First of all, we've got Connor, who's donated £2. Thank you, Connor, saying, Ryan, are you ready to get your 55 t-shirt and flag? You know I am. Give it a week, and the background of this will be draped in 55s. Trust me, if they milked it a couple of years ago, we are certainly no, I'm joking. There will not be any 55 flags behind me before people think I'm being serious. No way. But thank you. Hello, Mick. Good to see you. Nice to see you in the comments again. Hope you're doing well, Ryan, mate. Oh, and the missus says hi. Hello. Hello, Mrs. Peebles. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the donation, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you to Dylan for being a member for 7 months. The big 7. What a celebration. And Adam with a 499 saying that 49 down, 1 to go. Congrats, Ryan. Chuffed for you, brother. Thank you, Adam. A constant support in the comments section and such. You're an absolute legend, and thank you for your contributions over the years. Right, let's get some of these questions. Do I think that Yang should get some first team football if Kuhn leaves, or should we sign a replacement? There is no amount of convincing done yet for me that would suggest Kuhn is ready to be Celtic's next right winger. I would also go to say that I feel like he's been hard done by with this injury coming up, but I don't feel like he's built enough on that we're on a form that would suggest to me enough that he's warranting of that. I think that he's got a lot of work to do and a long way until he's there. So listen, I'm all for Kuhn getting more football, more minutes, but I think it would be naive of Celtic to let Nicholas Kuhn go and then treat Yang as the replacement. That's all I could say to that. Brendan Rodgers cardboard cutouts, Mr. Mottle, of course so. Of course. Let's get them. Let's get them in this room somehow. I don't even know if they would fit. He's saying, nah, he's not that tall, Rodgers. If I can fit, then a cardboard cutout of Rodgers surely could, because I'm taller than him by about 5 inches. Do you think the Celtic admins will come up with something to try and rattle Rangers when we win 55? Of course. Ewan, of course. I have no doubt about it. I mean, this is the same set of admins who've done the whole no half of anything and, you know, one club, unbroken history or whatever. They will do something to wind them up. And it'll be funny to see how the reaction goes online when the time hits. But let's hope it is this Saturday. I really do hope so. Hopefully, we should see some more realistic Adidas football shirts this season. More realistic. Do you mean that as in leaks or something, you know? Great season for you, Mr. 118. Celtic winning the treble, CM Punk being a Tim, and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. It's been a great 24-25. You know, I'm looking forward to welcoming in 25-26, but I can't complain. I mean, the only thing left would be a Harden Super Bowl, a Harden playoffs win. That would be fantastic, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Let's get into some Celtic-related questions. Who do you think is most likely to leave this summer? Last year, I thought it was Kuhn, but dropped form make me think that there won't be any big departures. I assume by last year you meant like last month or something rather than last year, Jace. I get what your question is anyway. Let's take the wording aside for a minute. Who do I think is most realistic to make any departures? I don't know. I don't feel like it's as clear cut as what last year was. We all knew Matt O'Reilly was going to leave. We all knew that was on the cards. It was going to happen. There was no doubts about it. This year, I don't think it's the same. People will look towards Kuhn. I don't think he's ready for the big move. And I think that maybe his little downturn form might make clubs wait another wee while. Maida, if he puts pen to paper, hopefully, it means I don't think it will be him. And I think the only other one is maybe Hatate. Hatate and Vickers' name have came up a couple of times. I could see it being one of the two. I really don't think Vickers will go, though. I don't want Hatate to go. I think his recent form suggests that we are in no place to be letting him go. But if I was to put my money on any of them, I think it's Hatate. But it's not as clear-cut as it usually is. And hopefully we are going into next season with the remaining big names that we have right now. Because this squad is one to be built on rather than letting it fall apart. By the way, a huge thank you, a huge shout-out to Paul, who's donated 20 quid. That's beyond generous, Paul. You've took a leaf out of the Celtic transfer book of last summer, spending big, getting it out. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it. God bless. Hi, Ryan. What is your 4 ideal summers in this 4 ideal signings in this summer window? It's going to be the talk of the town these next few weeks, isn't it? We're going to be talking about who comes to Celtic, what players sign, what positions sign, because when the league is wrapped up, that will be the first thing on everybody's minds. Even though we've got a Scottish Cup final to look forward to, that will be the first thing on people's minds, if not already is the first thing on people's minds, hence the reason we're getting the questions. I would say the 4 ideal signings would be a centre-back. I think that we need to bring in some more quality there. Someone who has the Champions League level experience that we might need. I would really like someone like that, somebody who's going to be coming in and unfazed by the idea of Champions League football. I would love a central defensive midfielder. The boy from Lyon Saint-Gilloise, who we spoke about a few weeks ago, looks like a great option. I would like to maybe see him come in, or just a central defensive midfielder in general. I would also like to see Lennon Miller come in. who's another central midfielder, of course, but can play more advanced, can play deeper if you need him to. I would really like Lennon Miller, and I would like a striker. There was reports today that came out saying that the striker that we were apparently close to signing in January from Slovan Bratislava, his £7 million transfer fee has been slashed, and Celtic could potentially get him for cheaper because Bratislava are looking to get to sell in the summer, or he's looking to leave. I don't necessarily know if that's the striker that I want. If Celtic are still looking at him, I would still really like Matthias Kviesgaarden if it's possible. But I would go for a centre-back, a defensive midfielder, Lennon Miller, and a striker as my priorities, if the squad stays the same. Now, of course, those priorities change if somebody like Kuhn leaves, because if Kuhn leaves, you're then talking about having to bring in a right winger as a priority. But if the squad was to stay the exact same right now, that's the four that I would want, Paul. That's the four that I would want. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate it. And thank you once again, Paul, for the very generous donation. I am having to go down the chat at a quick rate. If there's something you really want me to answer and I've missed it, just keep it coming in, and I will try and get to it as quickly as possible. The Greg Taylor question has been raised a couple of times in the chat. Do I think he'll stay? Do I know what's going to happen? I can categorically confirm that I have no insider information. I have nothing. I don't have anything bar gut feeling to act upon. My gut feeling is that he'll stay. My gut feeling is that he will put pen to paper and sign the contract. Now, I know a lot of people are going to bring up, but will he be happy playing as a backup? I just think with how his life has gone the past few months, and I think with how cushy a bit of money that he could be making at Celtic, even as a backup, I think he'll stay. I think he'll stay, man. I think he'll stay. I think that he's somebody who Celtic are keen to keep. Brendan Rodgers is keen to keep. And as the discussions go on and maybe Greg Taylor lays out his options, I think you'll know that Celtic is maybe still the best one. So I have a feeling he'll stay. But it could go either way, man. It'll go either way. It's just gut feeling I'm going on upon. Thank you, Matthew, for being a member for 6 months, mate. It's very appreciated. Thank you for your loyalty, sir. Is my 24-25 the best attacking season for one player's had since Larson? Potentially. I would probably have to say yes, even though I've got this man shut behind me who I love dearly. Maida's numbers say it all. That's the one. That's who I was talking about. David Strelic, who plays for Slovan Bratislava. Apparently his price has been slashed. There was confirmation that Celtic tried to sign him in the January window, if you believe Slovan Bratislava themselves, who came out and said that Celtic tried to make an 11th hour offer, and the structure of the deal just wasn't what they were looking for. I don't know if that was just a move out of pure desperation at the time, and if it's still one that Celtic would prioritise. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Depending on what happens with Taylor, we still need another left back. I don't think Schlupp has done enough, in my opinion. I don't think Schlupp will join Celtic anyway, and by all accounts, from what I hear, that looks as though it's definitely not happening. But once again, I can't confirm or deny anything, to be quite honest. I mean, this is Caden puts it well. Greg Taylor will stay. New Wayne, been settling in Scotland for years, pushing with the talks, and I reckon he wouldn't want the controversy. Controversy is switching over to Oak Central. Well, listen, we don't know where Greg Taylor's potential next stop would be should he leave Celtic, but I just have a feeling that you're right with what you say. I think he's settled here. He's got a young family now, and maybe up sticks and moving elsewhere isn't on the cards for him. It depends on what offers are on the table. That's all I can. I know it sounds very on the nose, very Captain Obvious, but it just depends on what is on the table. And if he's got something better on the table, then he'll go. But we don't know that. We don't know at all. I'm a Yang fan. I think you need a Yang poster. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Griffiths scored more. If we're trying to compare the Lee Griffiths season to Dyson's, I would be so upset, St. Mortal, so upset. I think it would be really difficult to land Kviesgaarden in the summer. I think that Brøndby have been very open now and said they expect to see him go and expect bids to come in. I just have a feeling there'll be clubs maybe in like Germany looking at him. I really think it's going to be a difficult one for Celtic to pull off. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think we've got to try and throw everything we can at it and see what happens. But it'll be a while. Paul, not signed a French player in a while. Wonder if there's any kicking about that we're interested in. I think the last one was Julian. Correct me if I'm wrong. Potentially could be. I think it might be. I can't think of any signed 2020, 21, 22. I think Julian might be the last French player we signed. Of course, Rogers signing Edouard, Dembele, and then Cham was a great year in time. It's all about players that are good enough coming in. I don't really care about their nationalities, but I would like a Musa part 2 if that's possible. I would like that. Do I think that Rodgers will play some of the younger, inexperienced players at Ibrox and give guys an opportunity in a big game, or should he go full strength and finally beat? I think there is 0 to 1% chance he makes changes like that at Ibrox. We can't afford to lose another derby. We cannot go into a title-winning season. We can't finish off a title-winning season, a treble-winning season, with the black mark over it that Rangers beat us 3 times. I don't think that Rodgers wants that. The fans certainly don't want it. I would be stunned if Brendan Rodgers was to make any big changes like that or bring youngsters in from the get-go. Maybe as the game goes on, depending on the way the game is going. But and people will say, oh, well, it'd be good to get them used to it and all the rest of it. But there's no point in bringing the negativity in from losing to Rangers again. And when you play a weaker side, the chances of getting beat go up. It's going to be a tough game. They're going to kick us off the park. It's one that I just don't think Rodgers would take the risk of making changes or bringing in younger players. And I don't think even though, and people might go, oh, you're talking shite because we've won the league already by then or whatever, right? But I don't think we're necessarily in the place where we should or could be doing that anyway. So that would be my opinion. Because I think that we just need a win desperately in that game. Christopher saying, whoever we are signing has to be concluded quicker than it has been recently. We have to stop this low bidding crap if Brendan Rodgers wants a certain player. Get it? Getting done. And yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Obviously, you want to negotiate. Business is a big part of football, and we run as a very well drilled business. But I don't want us wasting time and doing things that would jeopardise us signing players. Obviously, well within our means and making sure that we're working to our level and not overspending. Big conversation that came up from that article yesterday was how the competition in the league right now might be suffering and Celtic's domination not being good because of a lack of competitiveness and stuff like that. Listen, how would you make the league more competitive? There's not much that Celtic can do. Not much I can do. Financially, that's how you make a league competitive. You drill in finances for all the teams, and it's just impossible. We're a long way away from talking about Scottish football being competitive again, whether you think that's detrimental, whether you don't care. The fact of the matter is competition is so difficult. But I do truly believe deep down there's things that these clubs could be doing to allow themselves to be more competitive, to bring in more money. Small things make a difference, man. Starting from giving teams free tiers at their free stands at their stadium or whatever. Look at St Johnstone. They done it and they beat us. So there's the myth away of Celtic playing another home game away, but that brought them in probably an extra 100,000, 200,000 quid. And that's huge because that could be a signing. That could be a couple of players' wages for the year. I just think that there's so many things that clubs can do themselves. Celtic seem to be the people who are called the bad guys for dominating the league, for being in the position that they're in. When Celtic were the ones that, after Rangers' demotion to the 3rd Division, sorted themselves in a way that put them streets ahead of any sort of competition. They ran themselves brilliantly as a club on and off the field, and they're reaping the rewards of it. Now, many other clubs might have not done that. I think we've seen examples of it in mainland Europe where teams who have been the biggest club by a country mile haven't put themselves in the position where Celtic have, dominating every year, because they haven't done the right things on and off the park. Celtic have conducted themselves as a top business. The model is fantastic. Celtic deserve credit for the way that they've conducted themselves over the past decade. They don't deserve to be lambasted because other teams can't keep up. I truly believe that some of these clubs in Scotland, their fans have a cheek because their clubs have let them down. whether it's going to look at something like Hearts' financial crisis, or whether it's going to look at something like the whirlwind of managers that Aberdeen have been through, or whether it's something as detrimental as Hamilton Academical getting scammed by somebody and wherever it was for £1 million, clubs big and small haven't helped themselves, and Celtic have just strategically battled their way through the last decade when things were tough and things were good. And that's why we're in the position we're in. But you go over to countries like, I don't know, you go over to countries like Croatia, where you look at a club maybe the size of Dinamo Zagreb and go, they should be dominating. They should be winning treble after treble. They should probably have the financial advantage. But they don't win the league every year. And that could be easy to happen to Celtic in this league. But we've never allowed that to happen because of the way we've ran ourselves. So that isn't our problem, that we've done things right. And I will die on that hill. Rant over. Do I think that Engels was worth the 11 million? Because most people will say no, but correct me if I'm wrong. Does he not have more goals and assists than Igamani? Look, there's no point in comparing him to any Rangers players at the end of the day because their team are full of losers. But look, listen, the guy is 21, 22 years of age. And the 11 million is going to be hung over him unless he scored 40 goals this season. It's just as simple as that. He's going to be Young Player of the Year for Celtic. He's had a very decent first season at the club. 11 million is an investment. 11 million isn't to be spent and seen the results of over the course of 1 year. It's an investment. And so far, it's looking like a very smart investment from Celtic, in my opinion. And people forget that. People forget that Celtic are investing in these players. They're not just signing them for the sake of signing them. They're investing in them. And he's got another 4 years in his deal. So we'll do the talking about the 11 million at the end of the 4 years, and then we can go, he was worth the 11 million or he wasn't worth the 11 million. But right now, when you look at his contributions, when you look at his general performances, I think he's on track for smashing it, in my opinion. But I know that everybody doesn't agree with that because we need things to happen so quickly in Scotland, and Celtic in particular. We need results straight away. And he could play brilliantly 1 week, but if he's poor the next, that's it. The whole money was a waste. So yeah, there's all different ways to look at things. I think we need to be more. This is an interesting one from Caden because I never ever talk about Celtic fans saying anything other than that Celtic need to spend and that they both need to back the manager with big money. But Caden's actually saying that we should be more savvy in the market. I remember that in Ange's first season, we got Juranovic, Giacomakis, Starfelt, Abada all on the cheap because we exploited their club's situations. And I don't. And just to reiterate what Caden's saying here, I don't think that's necessarily Caden saying that we shouldn't be spending money, that we shouldn't be spending big. What Caden's trying to say is, there's clubs maybe in situations where they need to part with players or that players want to leave, and Celtic should be looking at those to try and get players cheaper than what they normally would cost. The thing is, Caden, as smart as a comment as that is, I believe, there's so many people out there that doesn't wash with. They want Celtic to be spending big bucks. My end of the day, my basis for Celtic signing players is that we should be signing whoever is good enough for whatever we can sign them for. I don't care if it's 1 million, 10 million, or Christ, when we break the transfer record up at like 15 million. As long as we've done our homework and they look like the real deal, that's all I care about. So I take on your point and I do agree with it, but I just want us to make the right signings. There is new Champions League rules. So I was reading an article about the Champions League rules. Let me go and see if I can find it again. See what they actually are. If these are actually rule changes that matter. Right, here we go. Champions League rule changes that are coming up. If I skip down the article, I seen it earlier on the Daily Record. God almighty, they write a lot of fucking drivel before it. Build stating there is 3 major switch-ups being considered that will be discussed by UEFA. So the rule changes actually haven't happened yet. They're being discussed by UEFA. They're being considered. The first is to get rid of an extra time in the knockout rounds and heading straight for a penalty shootout. I 100% go for it. I am controversial football opinion. I absolutely despise extra time. I think extra time is a waste of time. I think it's rotten. And I would rather go through the heartbreak of losing on penalties than the heartbreak of getting beaten extra time. It's just as painful either way. And playing that extra 30 minutes of football more often than not, take Celtic out to the side for a minute, is usually shite. It's usually two teams who are petrified to lose the game, taking no risks. It's a waste of time. And in the final, absolutely, let them play the extra half hour. But in the knockout rounds, we don't need it. Essentially, what this would mean is, if we didn't concede that goal in Munich, we'd have went straight to penalties, which I think would have suited Celtic. Let's be real. That is a rule change that massively helps Celtic out. Because if you've got the chance to go and get a draw out of a Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, more often than not, in extra time, they're going to do you. Because they've got the fitter players, they've got the better players, they're going to do you. If you can take them straight to penalties, it's literally anybody's game. So I'm a big fan of that. I hope that one goes through. The second consideration is that the return leg home advantage, clubs finishing in the top 8 after the league phase get rewarded with direct entry at the last 16 and having their second leg at the home ground. Okay, right, fair enough. That's fine. I think that's fair. It could come with the further incentive of the return games for the quarterfinal, semi-final matches against lower-ranked teams, also at home. The current rule only applies in the last 16. So they want to give the home advantage to teams that finish in the top 8 through the quarter. Right? Well, I don't know what I think about that one. I don't know what I think about that one. But okay, not as a. Do you know what? It doesn't affect Celtic. How often are we going to make semi-finals and quarterfinals? You know. And the third and final point comes with the reintroduction of country protection. Currently, clubs from the same league can't face each other in the league phase. So if Celtic Rangers both enter the Champions League, they would not play each other at that stage. However, in the playoff round of 16, they can be paired with PSG facing Brest, support the early matches. Not. Oh God, those. The only one that's really, but Rangers aren't going to be in the Champions League anytime soon. So the only one that really affects Celtic is the scrapping of extra time. And I'm all for that, to be quite honest. That's what I'd say to that. I'm all for that, to be quite honest. Cammy, thank you for being a member for the channel. What's happened to Johnny Kenny? Fell off since staying after Shamrock Rovers. Listen, I think that people have got to face the harsh reality that some of these guys maybe just aren't good enough for the level. And I mean that with all due respect to Johnny Kenny and players in the League of Ireland as well, who've got a cracking uprising league at the minute, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we're seeing more of an influx of League of Ireland players to Scotland and maybe even Celtic. But Brendan Rodgers ultimately is the one that sees him at training every day. We don't, and the manager makes decisions that are best interest for the team. It's all very well and good for us saying that we should see him or we want to see him or whatever, but if he's not going to be good enough, then sometimes you just got to be brutal about it, and I think that's the situation. I agree with what Nathan would say, though. I would definitely put him out on loan to maybe a Scottish Premiership side, if any were looking for him, and I think that would allow us to see more how he adapts to the Scottish game. 100%, Nathan. I'm in full agreement of that. I think I said that in one of the podcasts a few weeks ago, if I'm quite honest, but that's what it is. Calling it now. Maida will dethrone Cena and take the title off that balding fraud before he retires. I bloody hope so. Let's do it. Let's have it. I want that. The only changes I would make to the Champions League is having the whole playoff as a draw instead of doing the mental gymnastics. Yeah, 100%. Even if they made it like, so obviously you get between 9th and 24th. Even if it was like the top half of that are seeded and the bottom half of it are unseeded, and then that's the draw, I would be fine with that. But the whole, I'm not going to sit and cry about it because we gave it our all and we came pretty fucking close. But I thought it was kind of shite that we went from realistic. We could have went from facing, depending on how things fell, we could have played like two teams who you fancy your chances against, but because of how it finished, we had to get Man City or Bayern. Like just because of a couple of places. I'm not a huge fan of that either, Adam. I would agree with you. I think that's something that I think eventually they'll look at that. Somebody's going to complain at one point, because look at like Real Madrid and Man City, for example. They drew each other, didn't they? No. Did they? They did, didn't they? Real Madrid and Man City played each other. And I think eventually one of these big boys is going to go, why should we be getting punished having to play such and such? And they'll probably fix it. Not for our sake, but for the big team's sakes. I think so. Controversial opinion, but Prime Larson would start for Prime Madrid. I don't think that's that controversial. I mean, Christ almighty, retiring Henrik Larsson went and won the Champions League with Barcelona, single-handedly, may I add. So I don't think it's controversial at all, Banana Peel. I think that's fair. And on that note, that is probably where I'm going to wrap up tonight's stream. Thank you, ladies and gents, for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure. Can I just quickly give a shout out to everybody who donated tonight, because you're all legends. Mick, Connor, Adam, Paul, thank you so much for your donations. Members, we will be live on a members only stream tomorrow or Friday. Keep an eye on the Discord and I will announce that. Also, Football Manager stream as well will be announced before Mackenzie has a stroke down there. I thank you for tuning in tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back in the channel with another main video tomorrow. So until then, take care.